Good morning, everyone. The committee will now come to order as we begin our legislative hearing this morning to consider 21 measures that are broadly focused on our nation's public lands, natural hazards, conservations, monument designations, and various other measures. I am the sponsor of 6 of the bills on the agenda this morning, so I'm going to just cut right to the chase, speak to them, and try to move through our program this morning as expeditiously as we can. The first bill that I have on the agenda this morning is a Second Division Memorial Modification Act that will authorize 3 new benches for the memorial in President's Park on the National Mall. Those benches will honor soldiers from the Army's 2nd Infantry Division who were killed in the Cold War in Korea, the war in Iraq, and the war in Afghanistan. Apparently, it actually takes an act of Congress to do this modification. And as we consider the bill this morning, I want to give a special shout out to a gentleman by the name of Abe Thompson and all those who are streaming this hearing from the 2nd Infantry Division's reunion in Missouri this morning. Know that I'm going to be working hard before you all come to Washington, D.C. next September to celebrate the 2nd Infantry Division's 100th year of active service to our nation. We're going to be working hard to get this through. Next up on my schedule is the National Volcano Early Monitoring System Act. Few may realize this. Senator Cantwell certainly does, coming from the Pacific Northwest, but the United States has 169 active volcanoes, many in Alaska, 7 in Washington, and along the Pacific Northwest. Establishing a national watch office will help us monitor, warn, and protect millions of Americans from the dangers and impacts of their eruptions. The third measure is my Alaska Native Claims Settlement Improvement Act, which includes a series of adjustments to help communities throughout Alaska. ANCSA was always meant to be a living law, and 45 years after its passage, we have a range of issues that demand our attention, whether it be land conveyances that have still not yet been completed or land allotments for our Alaska Natives who are veterans of the Vietnam War. This bill deserves the Senate's timely approval. When we're talking about timely approval, I cannot not mention the situation in King Cove and my request for the King Cove Road Land Exchange Act. This would provide a life-saving road for this small, isolated community. The Interior Department had a chance to do the right thing, but back in December 2013, it refused, and since then, King Cove has seen 52 more medevacs, including 17 that have been carried out by the Coast Guard. Members of this committee have had an opportunity to hear this situation over the months and over the years. Just last week on the Senate floor, I shared the story of a Native elder in her 70s who came into the King Cove clinic. She had a broken hip. She had to wait 40 hours for the fog to lift before she could fly out and be medevaced to Anchorage. I'm seeking to avoid pain and suffering that could be avoided if we had a short gravel, 1-lane, non-commercial use road to connect it to Cold Bay. We have an opportunity to do the right thing by approving this life-saving road. This measure is not included as part of my Alaska Economic Development and Access Act because it's not an economic development issue for me. It is a life safety issue. I do have a measure that we have entitled Alaska Economic Development and Access to Resources Act. And this is a measure that will help unlock Alaska's federal areas, allow responsible oil, gas, mineral, and timber production to proceed. Right now, we're facing pretty much a brick wall of opposition in these areas. What this package will do will help facilitate production in the NPRA, the non-wilderness portion of ANWR, and our offshore Arctic. And that will work to refill our Trans-Alaska Pipeline, help to reduce our state's budget crisis, and fulfill the promises made to Alaska at statehood, just as it creates tens of thousands of new jobs, bolsters our competitiveness, and protects our national security. At its core, my economic development package is a measure to ensure that Alaska is not just a resource-rich state, but also a resource-producing state, especially when it comes to our federal lands and waters. And I would just remind the committee that that was our deal in Alaska. When President Carter signed ANILCA into law in 1980, he promised, and this was his words, 100% of the offshore areas and 95% of the potentially productive oil and mineral areas will be available for exploration or for drilling in Alaska. Today, that promise has effectively been turned on its head. It seems like 100% of our offshore areas are effectively closed, and only about 5% of our onshore areas are actually open. That can't be allowed to stand, and my legislation is a way to change that course. The economic development package will also resolve a difficult situation that has emerged in southeastern Alaska. The Alaska Mental Health Trust was constitutionally established with a responsibility to use its lands to raise revenues to provide care for the most vulnerable across our state. And that includes resources through timber. The trust has announced that it will hold 2 timber sales on the lands that it holds near Ketchikan and Petersburg, where logging is widely opposed. And the trust basically says it doesn't have any other choice here. And while the trust might not have a choice, we do, in the form of language to expedite a land exchange that the trust and the Forest Service have already agreed to in concept. There's been an agreement to initiate that was executed last year, and its assumption is in the proposed Tongass Land Management Plan. So this is our chance to reach an agreement to help the trust, help our small timber industries, and address the concerns of the residents in these communities. If the administration is serious about a successful transition to young growth, my bill will help ensure it. And then finally, one of the main topics of today's hearing will be monument designations, an area where the administration has repeatedly pushed its authority. It seems like we're reading about a new designation almost every week. That's probably an exaggeration, but it just seems like that. The Antiquities Act was a response to an existential threat that Congress could not respond to in a timely manner: the theft of and from archaeological sites. And that's why designations under it were supposed to cover the smallest area possible, not the largest. Now, not all presidents have found it necessary to call upon this authority, although presidents from both parties have done so, and some have used their authority to diminish the size of a previous designation. But in this administration, the Antiquities Act has been wielded as a tool to both sidestep and threaten Congress. What needs to be recognized is that monument designations have an impact on local communities. What needs to be recognized is that public comments cannot only come from supportive organizations. We need to rethink and reform how monument designations can be made, and that's why I've introduced the legislation entitled Improved National Monument Designation Process Act, which requires both local consultation and congressional approval. And while we may hear other perspectives here today, I'm proud to speak on behalf of the vast majority of Alaskans when I say that these bills are critical to our economy and to our future. They'll protect us from natural hazards, open up new economic opportunities, restore balance between Congress and the executive branch, and also honor our military heroes. I have already received about 70 statements for the record, and I would ask that they be included as part of the committee hearing record today. And with that, I will turn to Ranking Member Cantwell for your comments, and then we will turn to our colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.